This is The Dig on the Huskers Radio Network podcast. Powered by Emeritus. Featuring Nebraska volleyball assistant coach Jaylen Reyes. Here's your host, Jessica Coody.
Well, welcome back to The Dig, and welcome back, Jaylen Reyes. A pair of two more Husker wins to talk about over the weekend. But before we dive in to the wins over Purdue and Rutgers, how about that atmosphere inside the Bob on Friday night? It just seemed electric.
It was awesome. I mean, the crowd definitely gave us a little bit of a boost in sets 4 and 5. And, yeah, I mean, it's just kind of business as usual for those guys. But, yeah, there was a little bit they turned it up for sure in set 4, and then it kind of bled into set 5. And, you know, we needed every bit of it. So we really appreciate the fans.
Did you guys see, you might have been in the locker room and they had the light up bracelets and stuff. That looked really awesome. Again, on TV and the pictures and stuff, it was pretty cool.
Yeah, it looked, I mean, I saw they had a little bit. They did it before the match, so I saw that one, but I heard the light show in between sets 2 and 3 was pretty cool. We weren't out there for that part, but seeing some of the pictures was pretty awesome.
Well, you know, Coach had said it, maybe not the prettiest wins, but found a way to win. Let's start with Purdue, and a lot of people have said this. Lauren and JB talked a lot about it on the match during the broadcast, but if you looked at the stats and didn't know the final score, it would look like maybe Purdue won that game. But what was the difference, I guess? How were you guys able to pull that one out and maybe not win pretty, but finding a way to win?
It came down to serving and passing. You know, I mean, that's what kind of solidified it for us. They passed a little bit better. I don't think we served as well as we wanted to. But the big difference was they had a bunch more service errors, and especially in the 4th and 5th sets, they had a lot of service errors. You know, that kind of, we had way more hitting errors than they did. They had more kills. They out-hit us hitting percentage-wise, but just the discrepancy in service errors. And then that's the one thing about volleyball that people maybe don't quite fully understand is in basketball, you lose a court, like let's just say, hey, you're down 20 after the first quarter. You start down 20 after the beginning of the second quarter. In volleyball, it resets to a degree. So sometimes it's if you were to divvy up when the service errors happened, they all showed up. A lot of them showed up in sets 4 and 5, and that's the big number, in my opinion. Was the big number. You know, they played awesome. I mean, Purdue played great. I think both teams played great. It was one of those matches. I think I would have felt this way even if we lost. Like, I think it's one of those matches you kind of hate to see a team lose, just because I think both teams played so hard. Obviously, both staffs are going to feel like, hey, we could have played better in these areas of the game. But I think the biggest difference, if you looked at a stat sheet, if you just scroll over to the service error part, they missed a lot of serves, and I think the big part of it was the serves they missed. A lot of them showed up in sets 4 and then in the beginning of set 5, which was a big deal just because, you know, in the set 5, we didn't have to work as hard for some side outs versus they sided out really well in set 5 too, but they had to just work a little bit harder. I don't think we missed a serve in set 5, and they missed maybe 4, you know, 4 or 5 of our points, our points were off of them serving. So we didn't really have to do anything. You know, and the margins are super thin when you're playing I know it ended up being 17, but when you're playing a 15, that's a huge boost they gave us and stuff like that. So I think that was the biggest difference in the match in terms of, like, how did Nebraska win? I think a lot of it was, you know, some of the service errors we were gifted. But, I mean, they played great. I mean, their two outsides were handling us pretty good, and we spent a lot of time chasing what they're doing and stuff like that. And, you know, their opposite had a nice match, especially at the beginning of the match. And stuff like that. It's just, you know, we found a couple more points at the end. That was the difference.
I'm sure the crowd played a big factor in some of those service errors, but it's not just, you know, Purdue. We've seen a lot of teams have issues with service errors against Nebraska. Is some of it, too, because you guys have been so good passing that maybe trying to figure out a way to get you guys out of sorts?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, you know, right? I mean, it could be there's some teams that, maybe not to mention teams off the bat, but serving, there's so many different philosophies in serving, and it just depends on where you came from. If I'm being honest, like me personally, not Nebraska, but Jaylen Reyes personally, there's a little bit of like give and take with serving, right? Because you could serve it really easy against good teams and just serve in. Don't make any errors, not serve too aggressively. And when you don't serve aggressively, you won't make as many errors. But those teams that are really good, they can just perfect pass you, set one of their three gnarly attackers and kill the ball anyway. So there's a little bit of like give and take. There's some teams that are super aggressive serving. So we've played some teams that their coaches are, I shouldn't say okay with missing serves, but they want their teams to go for it, which when you tell everyone on your team to go for it, you're going to have more service errors than the average team that just is more of a serve-it-in team. So I think we've played some of those teams. But I think there's to a degree of they're trying to find, we have some pretty gifted serve receivers on our team. And a lot of teams spend a lot of time trying to serve away from those guys. And when you try to serve away from those guys and how we maybe structure our serve-receive formations is we try to put maybe who we think the other team's going to try to serve. We try to maybe stick them on the sideline, a little bit closer to the sideline. So if you want to hit it over there, you have to hit it over there. And when you hit or serve balls toward the sideline, they can go out.
Right.
Or you just try to make the window smaller for them so that way their margin of error goes up. And for them to hit it, maybe they serve it a little easier to get it on the target. And now it's a little bit easier for us to pass. And then it's nice where we can have some of those, a couple of our littles, whether it's Laney, Lexi Rodriguez, or Olivia Mock, kind of maybe shifting over there to help maybe one of our outside hitters pass the ball. And I think some people try to serve us really tough to like, well, okay, man, Nebraska is a really good passing team. We have to try to hammer it in the seams or serve short or serve it deep. And when you try to hit the edges of the court, there's times where you're going to, sail one long or leave one in the net. And, so I think the fact that, we're a good passing team can kind of lead to that. I don't know exactly, maybe the reasons why teams are missing serves, but I think there's a little bit of factors to that. And I think, honestly, the environment is tough. Like it's one thing to serve on a Thursday afternoon with nobody in the crowd and you can just serve balls after balls versus it's 9:30 p.m., it's 0-0 in the fifth, and you have 8,000 people screaming as you're serving. That's a little bit different environment that, honestly, most teams aren't really used to, So I think the environment definitely helps. I think, maybe the things we're trying to do passing and then the ability for us to pass and side out when we pass well, it forces the other team's hand to serve it tougher, which is going to lead to some errors, So I think it's a little give and take.
So Coach Cook was saying after the win that maybe the blocking wasn't quite as good up to par. You guys are such a good blocking team, and I know you guys have tremendous respect for those outsides and Chicoine and Hudson. When you dive into the film, maybe what was some of the issues and why you guys weren't able to maybe get some touches on some of those? Yeah,
I think first, to give credit to Purdue, I think they I think they're both really good, both All-American level outside hitters. So that's one. Trying to stop, most teams maybe have one. They have two, so it's constant pressure. I actually thought they passed really well, which helped. It kind of opened up their offense a little bit. Myers, one of their second middle, not Raven Colvin, but Myers and Kenna Woolard actually had a really good start to the match. So, there's a little bit of the game plan goes toward those two outsides, but then in the beginning of the match, those two other players, the two, quote-unquote role players, are having great starts to the match. So now it kind of diversifies their offense a little bit. So now it's not like we can just spend all of our attention early on the match on those two players. And then, trying to stop Eva Hudson and Chloe Chicoine is tough. For people that watch the match, Chloe Chicoine's killing balls, hitting it down the line, hitting it deep cross, throwing it and tipping it into the block, kind of pushing it into the block and throwing it out of bounds. Just the array of shots both of them have, especially Chloe Chicoine, it's tough, and stuff like that. And I felt like early they got us on our heels, and now it's there was a little bit of, I feel like, maybe us chasing the last play. She hits cross. You have that in your mind, so you stay a little more inside, and then she hits line, and then she tips it. So it's just, we were kind of out of sorts blocking in terms of just their ability to move us around. I think probably was the biggest thing, and that takes a ton of skill and a ton of, kind of showing us that, like, there's a million ways to kill a ball. And if you can kill a ball a million ways, it makes you really hard to defend, and then the fact that now Eva Hudson rotates to the front row, and she can similarly, they're different players, but she can hit the ball all over the court and have success all over the court. That's like tough to handle and stuff like that. And I just felt like they got ahead of us, and we spent a good amount of the match chasing them instead of getting out in front of them and stuff like that. So, that's I don't have like one specific thing like why. I just felt like they moved it around and they made us chase them a little bit versus like us kind of getting out in front of them early in the match, and so, and that happens sometimes. And, it's nice where, we can kind of rely on maybe some other specific areas to win in volleyball, and I thought siding out, we were pretty good. Even the sets we lost, we sided out pretty good. It's just Purdue sided out better than us in those two sets. We passed really well, which I think help facilitate some of those service errors at the end when we really needed it. So I think this is one of those games where, block and defense wasn't up to our standard, but it was really nice where, hey, that didn't affect our ability to side out, and siding out, if you can side out, you can beat anybody. You don't technically, if someone hits 300 on you, you can hit 350 and win, but we just proved you can hit 340 or 240 and win. So,
when that happens and you have those outsides that just have it clicking, when you go back to the block, is it something where no matter what, and you said, that we're chasing a little bit, but is it going back to just, hey, do what we do, go back to our principles?
I felt like I think what you said is perfect. I think we got a little, I don't know how to phrase it. Yeah, I think just going back to fundamentals, making sure that it's just like, hey, we talk about with the blockers, it's like you're kind of playing the game within the game with those types of players where they're not just going to hit it one direction a high percentage of the time. They have the ability to hit it everywhere, depending on the situation. So just making sure we're in the right spots, we're looking at the right things, but then everybody else is ready to play defense, right? It's block and defense. It's not a one-on-one matchup. It's when they set a certain player, we have 6 defenders, whether there's 2 blockers or 1 blocker and 5 defenders or 2 blockers and 4 defenders, making sure that everybody's ready to do their specific job in those specific situations. And I felt like sometimes there was occasional like, hey, we were good here, but we weren't good here. And then we fixed that part, but then this part was a little suspect, if that makes sense. So I think just making sure that we were all doing the correct things. And, we kind of talk about like, blocking defense, especially against great teams, it's like a war of attrition. It's about being good over a long period of time and not, okay, hey, like this ball, this ball, this ball. It's like it's a culmination of, we were good, and we, at the end of the day, the scoreboard told us we were good enough that night.
Right.
But yeah, there's a lot of mistakes we made and a lot of things we can fix, and that's the nice part about being able to practice this week.
Coach said after the Rutgers win that Laney Choboy was the energizer bunny for you guys. How good is she at recognizing when a team maybe needs a spark?
Yeah, she was awesome. I think there's a little bit, especially in the Rutgers match, right? There's a little bit of like this natural, we're playing back-to-back, late emotional match Friday.
Right.
How is the team going to come out? What kind of energy are we going to have on Saturday? And I think Laney naturally just does a great job of that. I don't think she did anything out of character. I just thought Laney was her, and that's what we want from all of them. But yeah, no, she was really good this whole weekend, honestly. She made a bunch of plays against Purdue. She passed really well both matches, some stuff that we've been working on with her. But yeah, we're a better team when Laney Choboy is being Laney Choboy out there, and whoever's watched our matches, you know what I'm talking about, where she's kind of running around the court and making a bunch of plays and firing everybody up. And but yeah, that was I thought that was huge. The fact that human nature will could be a little bit of a letdown, and suddenly you're maybe, hey, we're a little behind to start Saturday night. I didn't watch this match, but I heard Purdue went 4 with Iowa. Just because there is going to be a natural let down, and then obviously you just played like such a physical back and forth match the next day. It's like, even not even mentally, but like physically, it's like you got to get up for the next match, and stuff like that. So I thought Laney did a nice job, like, early of, like, really, like, injecting a ton of energy into our team. And then, that kind of got us going, and then it was like everybody else kind of followed suit. And I think some other kids did a really nice job of that, but yeah, Laney for sure.
When Lauren asked Coach about Laney or not Laney, but about Merritt and playing the 6 rotations, Coach said, well, then that takes away maybe some opportunities from Laney. For those that maybe don't understand the rotations, is there ways that you can get Laney involved and still have her role and her doing what she does, and Merritt playing the 6 rotations? Yeah,
I mean, the hard part is they play the same spots, right? So and then because they go in for each other, when Merritt's in the back row, we like Merritt's serve and we like her back row attacking, but like Laney brings so much of those like intangible things, and also, honestly, she's a great passer and defender. So I actually personally like the changes where it's like, okay, sometimes we bring Merritt in the back row, we'll sub her back in the back row, maybe a rotation early to help kill a ball. So I'll give you an example. When Purdue had their first match point at 14-13, we subbed her back in. Bergen set her that back row attack, the Bick down the middle of the court, and Merritt killed that ball. It gives us just another attacking option versus at the end of that match, if I remember correctly, in row 6, so we had Becca on a slide and Taylor just got blocked out on the left. So we set Merritt that Bick, and it was one-on-one, and she killed it, which was huge because obviously if we don't win that point, we would have lost that match. So I think there's a give and take of like, what do we need in a certain time and stuff like that. So I think that's Coach's call. But I think the balance we have is great. But it's more of a, hey, when Merritt's in, there's a little more like offensive punch. And then when Laney's in, it's like better passing. And again, passing, it's not just an individual thing. When Laney's in there, it takes the load off of Taylor having to pass or Harper having to pass. Harper passed 58 balls on Friday. That's a lot. That's a lot. In a normal match, if you were to kind of serve, kind of spread it out, you might pass 15 to 20 balls. So Harper got served 57, 58 times.
Wow.
And this is with us, kind of using our littles to kind of hide Harper, So I thought Purdue did a really nice job of kind of targeting her and staying on her for the whole time. So just like when Laney's in, that also takes those like reps away that now those guys can just focus on attacking. And, sometimes people serve outside hitters. Think of it like body blows in boxing, where you're not going to win the fight off of like a jab or two to the ribs or to the body, but it's just like over 5 rounds, you're wearing somebody down. So hopefully by the end, maybe they don't have the juice to kill some balls, and stuff like that. Basically, it increases Harper's player load if she has to pass 58 balls versus, even 30 balls. Like that's 25, 28 times she has to like mentally focus, and move her feet to the ball, where if she doesn't pass those balls, then she can just focus on hitting. So like that's the ability, that's what Laney and Olivia bring to us, right? Not just Laney, but so that's the trade-off, So I think the mix we have of like kind of going with Merritt serve and then Laney comes in, she plays defense, passes, and then if we need that offensive spark or that, that little pick-me-up maybe in row 6, we can bring Merritt in. I actually like the rotation that Coach is using in terms of, hey, having a feel of, it'd be nice to have a third attacker in this specific situation. Just have Merritt come in, and
keeps the opposing team on their toes.
Yeah. It's tough to prep for, and they're both elite in what they do. So it's not, okay, what we give up here, we make up in this side. Versus sometimes you take a passer out and you try to bring in an attacker, but maybe they're not as gifted as Merritt from the back row. So it's you're kind of watering down both, versus there's a little bit of a trade-off to, okay, Laney's in, better pass, defense, Energizer Bunny. It allows everybody else to maybe just kind of dial in what they're doing, versus Merritt comes in, okay, Taylor Landfair has to pass, so she has to focus on that first. But then she has a little bit more help coming out of the back row as an attacker. So there's a give and a take to it, and I think having a feel of what we need in that specific situation is kind of I would say is the key. I don't think it's just like a black and white, oh, we should 100% do this 100% of the time or 100% do this half the time.
So we've talked a lot to you about Lexi Rodriguez and, just, again, night in, night out her entire career, how incredible she's been. But how have you gone about coaching her throughout her senior season? Has it been different at all, or how do you approach, just someone that elite, continuing to push her to get better?
I would say the biggest thing is that she's way more capable of, like, comfortable, capable, willing, I don't know the word, of coming to me with stuff, So even after Friday night, she gives me a call and we chat about certain stuff that maybe I can help her with, or, hey, I really liked when you did this. It didn't really help me in a match when you did this. She's just more open with me. I don't think I'm necessarily coaching her any differently. Maybe I am. I don't know. You'd probably have to ask her that. But it's just you've reached this level of, like, she's kind of seen it all now.
Right.
And has a really good feel. I think when you're young, you're so focused on how you were doing individually. And I think that's okay. Like, that's good because you're trying to, like, I'm going to be great at what I'm doing, which she is. But now I think she has a better feel of, like, hey, as a team, can we be a little more like this? Or, hey, maybe defensively. But whatever it is, it's like she's kind of facilitating and starting the conversation. Comparing it to her freshman year where if I didn't maybe say something first, she would maybe not say anything.
Right.
If I'm being honest, she's the position that, even though I'm a position coach, I feel like I don't coach her that much because there's so many things she does right, She's going to be one that I realize, like, wow, how good she is when she's finally gone. I think that's going to be and don't get me wrong, we're going to have some gifted people here after her, but it's just one of those, like, she's a player that you don't see all the time, and I don't think I really I won't appreciate that until, like next year when she's no longer on our team. You're going to be like, wow, I never even thought about this anymore because it was just taken care of as a coach. And maybe as a coach, that's not a good thing to admit, but it's true. Like, when you have these, like, generational type players, they just naturally take care of stuff, or especially her that just naturally reads things so well. You don't even feel, it's conversations you just don't even have to have because she's just there. You just know, like, she's going to be there. When it really matters, she's going to be there. And now it's like, I think her ability to, like, talk to her teammates or talk to me or bring stuff up, I think for me is the biggest thing that I've noticed. Not me having to ask, hey, Lexi, what do you think? Now it's, hey, J-Ray, what do you think about this? Or tell me about this, So I would say that's the biggest thing I've seen in her. I don't know if I'm necessarily coaching her any differently.
Yeah, I think that's kind of more so what I was getting at, is that she's so good. And I think as fans, for 4 years, we've just seen her night in and night out just do what Lexi does. And maybe I think she's certainly appreciated, but it's just become expected, I guess, that I
think that position, too, is just because they're not killing the ball, right? I always just say, like, the sign of a good libero, 2 degrees sometimes, is just because you don't notice them.
Yeah.
Because they just do. She makes really tough plays look routine. Someone might, like, dive for a ball that's hit over here. Lexi will just stand over there and dig that same ball standing on 2 feet, and the ball will be out in front of her, and she probably wouldn't even verbalize it, but she'd probably go internally would say, well, I know she's going to hit over there, so why stand here and dive when I can just, but it's kind of, it doesn't look thrilling all the time, It's just like, oh, she's right there, it got hit to her, she should dig that ball. When it's like, do you guys know how much, like, mental capacity is to tell, like, the ball is going to be hit over there? So she just makes this slight shuffle and then digs. Like, I feel like I have a really good view of, like, watching her play, especially on the side of the bench that we start the match on, because I'm basically standing behind her and watching her read left side hitters and, like, see, like, okay, they're going to go sharp inside the block. And she's just there.
Wow.
And then she's going to hit in the corner, and then she's there again. And it's not like she's the biggest kid in the world where she can kind of stand in the same spot and, but it's like she just makes all these, they tip it into right over the block into the middle of the court, and she's there. It's just, her ability to just like see and go, okay, well, the ball is going to probably go over here. So I'm just going to make this like, I don't know, half a foot adjustment to the left. And then whether the ball's hit to my left or in front of me, I'm ready to go that way. Her ability to just read, process, and, just make all these slight adjustments and then just with great mechanics go and get the ball. It's something that it's really hard to teach. I mean, you can teach it, but it's just there's some people that come around every so often that just have this feel of what to do in specific situations, and I mean, I kind of joke with her, but like she's very much like a machine when it comes to like passing, like first contact. She's like a machine where it's just the computer is just working at a different frequency than other computers are, and I can't speak for everybody, but I know I'll have a greater appreciation for her next year.
Yeah, that's great perspective. One of the things, too, that Purdue tried to do is attack Bergen, and Bergen had to pass it a lot. I think she led the team in digs. How has she evolved in that area?
I mean, she's playing great defense, like awesome. I think that was kind of a big calling card for her is like, hey, we need you to be a defender. Obviously, setting is priority 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But like, hey, we need you to dig some balls, and she's been doing great. I think a strategy in volleyball is if you can't kill the ball, like get it on the setter, hit it at the setter. So setters actually, and that's a big reason why we need Bergen to be a great defender is just people are going to hit balls over there because that's how you can kind of maybe stifle an offense. So if you can't kill it, get it on the setter. Once the setter digs it, for volleyball fans out there, if you notice, like when Bergen digs it, we don't set Andy Jackson anymore. So like that's a strategy of teams is just hit it at the setter, So we're trying to mold our defense to where, hey, can we maybe try to take some balls off of Bergen so that way she can set, So I think that's a big thing for her. But yeah, in terms of her individual floor defense, she's like really taken pride in it a little more, and she's been playing lights out floor defense the last month or so now. So.
A couple other players I just wanted to ask you about. Rebekah Allick, I think it was last week, was the Big Ten Defensive Player of the Week. But how have you seen her offense grown and how much more effective she is offensively and being able to contribute in that regard? Again,
I think the biggest thing is, I think we talked about this last time, is just the number of attempts.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily, kills are important. Obviously, the more kills you get, the more Bergen's going to set you. So obviously they go kind of hand in hand. But like the number of attempts that Becca has is super important because it's a balance thing too, right? It's hey, if Becca is successful and we're setting her the ball, the block can't just go to Merritt. The block can't just go to Harper or Lindsay or Taylor or whoever's out there, So we're working on some stuff, trying to get her to maybe, just like the outsides, hit the ball with a ton of range. And in these specific situations, Becca, the whole country knows you want to hit the ball here. So they're going to put some people over there, whether it's block or defense. Can you hit the ball somewhere else? Or in this situation, Becca, we know that people like to hit the ball here. So can you hit it somewhere else? So for us, it's just making sure that she's available to get set in specific situations and understanding maybe what part of the net we want her to be in those situations. And then in those specific situations, can she not limit herself in terms of, I can only hit the ball here, So for us, it's like working on that. I think she's been doing a better job of moving the ball around, which I think for sure the last couple of matches, like her hitting percentage has gone up. When that hitting percentage goes up, Bergen's going to get you more sets, which I think is way better for everybody because, again, going back to that player load thing, Harper passes 50-something balls, and having to get set a lot. It's nice where if Harper passes those balls, we can set someone else. So we're not just leaning on Harper and Merritt, in those specific situations to kill balls. Rebekah can kind of help us out there too. So, but yeah, she's been doing great. She's been getting better. And, for us, it's like, can we keep expanding to where can we keep setting the middle as much as we can? Just because right now those are for sure our most efficient positions. Whoever it is efficiency, killing the percentage. When we get the ball in the middle, it works. It helps everybody too.
Last week, Lindsay was on, so she was here to be able to brag on Layla, but your position coach, how nice is it to be able to rely on Layla in a situation where if you need, you got these back-to-backs. Andy's been a little banged up, but to have someone you can call on like Lea Black.
Yeah, I mean, it just, again, experienced player that's played in the Big Ten, that's played in the Final Four, really gifted offensive player for sure. So it's really nice to kind of have that. So that way, you know, you lose a Andy Jackson for a week, you know, you're able to kind of just throw her in there, and it looks a little different how she plays maybe versus Andy. But it, you know, in terms of obviously results-wise, but even individual play, like we got a ton of like almost the same production. It looks differently, but in terms of on a stat sheet, we got the same production that we've been getting from Andy, you know, in that specific spot against Iowa and Illinois, especially. So, yeah, she's a huge luxury to have in terms of like obviously on her on-court play, but the mentorship that the mentor that she's been for Andy and Becca has been, a lot of their growth has been, I mean, I'm going to be honest, like, I think she's done more for them than I have, if I'm being 100% upfront, you know, just because you got somebody that's been there and done it, but also is like willing to accept roles and not even get ready, but stay ready. You know, she was like, her opportunity came and she was more than ready, you know, so I don't know. I'm just super proud of her because in this day and age, it's not always like that. We can just leave it at that.
Yeah,
you know. So she's been awesome, and we knew she'd be a great player. We knew she was going to be a great kid, but I mean, I didn't know she'd be this awesome. If I'm being upfront with you guys, so she's been great, especially for those two other players in her position.
That's great. Okay, so going into this week, you know, you guys have, because of the way the schedule is, you got kind of extended practice and training time. Coach had mentioned maybe addressing some of the defense and the blocking this week. How do you guys go about what you're doing this week to address maybe other things that you want to improve on and prepare for moving into the Big Ten and what, 3 out of the next 4 on the road? Yeah,
we're for sure going to obviously be spending time on blocking defense this week. Which is nice just because we have like an entire, you know, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, especially to practice here at home. So that's going to be big. So I'm sure there's going to be a big focus on blocking, some attacking stuff, especially maybe from our outside hitters. So a lot of that stuff takes a little bit of, you know, that stuff's hard to practice when you're not practicing all out full speed, you know, and when you have these like tight windows to practice, you kind of want them fresh on game days. So now it's kind of nice where, you know, especially maybe tomorrow on Wednesday, we can kind of tee it up a little bit more and really dive into those specific areas where it's harder when you have this different schedule and stuff like that. So, you know, hopefully we can put the time in, kind of learn, maybe change some things and you know, just like hammer some fundamentals in terms of how we want to play, especially defense is something that we definitely need to work on. Amongst other things, obviously. But it's nice to where some of the stuff we need to work on, it's hard to work on when, you know, maybe we're not jumping as much in practice. You know, it's something that we need a lot of reps at. But I think it's a lot of it is just like the time that we can put into it this week is invaluable for us, especially kind of with what you said with all the road matches coming up.
Okay, so at Michigan State, at Ohio State, what are you guys looking for? I know you just take it one match at a time. So Michigan State, what are you looking for? What do the Huskers need to do to come out with a couple of road wins this weekend? Yeah, I mean, I think serving is important for us, serving and passing. Can we make improvements defensively and just limiting what they want, what teams like to do? 2 very different teams we're going to be playing against. Ohio State has this mix of some younger players, and then they have 2 players I feel like we've been coaching against forever, and Emily London and Riley Rader, middle and an opposite, that are both, you know, former All-Americans and, you know, very, very capable offensive players. And then Michigan State's been kind of, I know they've been going back and forth between a 6-2 and a 5-1. I think they're in the 5-1 now, but an experienced setter. A lot of players, honestly, back, and then they've added some transfers from Oklahoma and one from Auburn, who are very like physically gifted attackers. They have an experienced libero and Nalani Iosia, and then Bishop, their setter, does a really nice job of stuff like that. And they play a system where they run a good amount of back row. Both teams will set balls to the back row. Michigan State to a few players, and then Ohio State sets a lot of balls to Emily London out of the back row. So 2 very different teams if you were to watch them play, how they play. So I think that will be a challenge too in terms of getting
used to one style of play and then having to kind of flip the next day with a short turnaround, going from East Lansing to Columbus will also be an interesting thing because we haven't done that yet in terms of going back-to-back in two different cities. So that would be another challenge for us too. And, we'll see kind of what, we'll see what we're going to bring. And I bet there's going to be probably two really cool environments we're going to be playing in front of too. And, we're going to have to be ready for the challenge because both teams are, I think both teams are definitely better than maybe what their records look like, in terms of, hey, Michigan State's a couple points away from doing this against this team, and Ohio State's pushed some really good teams to 5, and they've beaten some really good ranked teams this year. And, they have a player in Emily Londant that can, that has had a ton of success against us, where she's had mid-20s to 30 kills against us over her, time at Ohio State. So we're going to need to be ready for the challenge, and I know maybe some fans will look around and see their records, and I'm like, trust me, I'll be the first to tell you that both of these teams are much better than what their record shows.
Last thing I got for you, it seemed like, well, I guess the last time you were on, we were talking about the Huskers playing on ABC coming up this Saturday. Nebraska's going to be on NBC. And I know, again, this is a program that you guys get to do a lot of things, a lot of the first, and it's become expected a little bit, I guess, that this program gets to do some of those things and be those barrier breakers. But another monumental mark for the sport, for Nebraska volleyball to get to be on NBC is something you probably don't want to take for granted either, that this is continuing to grow and continuing to be the exposure that this program gets. For
sure. I mean, it's really awesome. That's part of the reason we have this quick turnaround. For people that don't know, I think we're playing at 6:30 Eastern time on Friday night and then starting at 2:30 Eastern time on Saturday. And that's not typical. That's not maybe ideal in terms of recovery, or especially when you have to fly. But the fact that we get to do it, the reason we're doing it is we're playing in that NBC's window. So I'm assuming there's no football game at that time.
Yeah, so leading into their prime time, 7:30 kickoff, which still have a big pregame show and all of that.
Yeah. And so, I mean, that's pretty awesome. We're on NBC on a college football Saturday, so... it's cool to see not just Nebraska, but it's cool to see other teams on Fox and ESPN and Big Ten Network and all these other, TV networks that are, hey, like this sport is really awesome and stuff like that. And yeah, I think it's really cool that we're kind of the first ones to be testing out all these different, these TV markets that have never been touched by volleyball, so the fact that we're on ABC on a Sunday, or, I think I talked about this last time, like Sunday ABC afternoon game, that was like me growing up watching the Lakers. The Lakers always played, Kobe and Shaq always played afternoon ABC window, and we got to play in that. And now we're going to be playing, during I think the traditional like Notre Dame NBC like window for football, and now we're going to be doing that smack dab in the middle of, I think it's, if I get the time right, it should be right after the Huskers, the football team plays, right? I know they're going to be playing on Fox, I would assume.
Yeah, but it's 11 a.m. kick.
Yeah, so I think it's really cool where we can kind of tee up football, and then volleyball fans can just click over to watch, go from Fox to NBC to watch the two sports play this fall. I think that's pretty awesome. And hopefully, hey, as we, hopefully volleyball keeps growing and stuff like that. And maybe one day when volleyball becomes this big deal, and how it started was, Nebraska getting onto all these different TV windows. And, maybe they'll make an ESPN 30 for 30 documentary on it someday. But, it's just kind of cool to see that, like, the sport, not just Nebraska, but the sport is getting into different TV windows and different TV markets and different, being able to be shown all over the country at, like, some prime time. It's not like, okay, we're starting at 2 a.m. because NBC has something, hey, we got a window at 2 a.m. if you want to play, versus like we're in the smack dab, start of the middle of kind of a pretty packed college football window. We're on NBC. We're not on the NBC Sports Network, or we're not on the NBC app. We're like, Channel 8 or whatever NBC is, and depending on your television package, so it's pretty cool.
For the record, if you were playing your Jaylen Reyes bingo card, we did get a Lakers reference.
Of course, always.
Great stuff as always. Enjoyed chatting with you, and best of luck this week.
Thanks, guys.
And Jaylen Reyes here with us on The Dig. The Dig is proud to be powered by Emeritus, powers this podcast and all of Husker women's sports. Thanks for listening and watching. And as always, subscribe and like wherever you listen to never miss an episode right here on the Huskers Radio Network podcast.